Welcome to Real Estate Radio Live, an informative and engaging podcast discussing everything you need to know about the world of real estate. Your host, Joe Caccera, provides you with insight and guidance on how to buy, sell, finance, and invest in real estate. He also offers real estate tax management strategies, new construction advice, home improvement tips, and much, much more. And now, to guide you around the world of real estate, here's your host and Real Estate Radio Live team leader, Joe Caccera.
Welcome in. This is Joe Caccera with Real Estate Radio Live, the podcast series, as we continue through the first week of March here. Actually, it is March 1st as we're doing this. Hard to believe we are rolling through. Just a reminder before we get started, we are with you 5 days a week, Monday through Friday. Please tune in to the podcast if you haven't done so, or if you want to pass them along. The information at reradiolive.com, or you go to iTunes. Also, just as a reminder, if you need anything in the way of financing, purchase financing, refinancing, any kind of consultation on residential finance, I'm here to help you with that. You could contact me either by text or call at 408-838-9060, or you could always email joe at reradiolive.com. Topic today, we're going to cover two things, really. Wells Fargo back in the news. We want to keep everybody up to date, kind of what's going on with the banking industry, many different ways. I also believe, kind of on a side note, there's going to be maybe some additional consolidation in the lending and banking industry this year and next year, just because the sheer volume of loan business now that the refinance market is over is going to have a direct effect on the amount of people, businesses, and lending that has taken place over the last 7 to 10 years. We have been in this perpetual kind of low interest rate environment over the last 7 to 10 years. And it come up a little bit, then it come back down, and then it really ratcheted back down over a period of time, and people took advantage of it over and over again. For the most part, we are done with all-time low interest rates. Interest rates are still good, but we're done with that ratcheting down process in which we lived with over the last 7 to 10 years. So because of that, I do believe there's going to be some consolidation in the banking and lending business. We'll see probably this year and next year. So Wells Fargo in the news again. Most of you may know that we've been been reporting a little bit on one of the biggest, if not the biggest lender in the United States, came under scrutiny last year because of the fraudulent accounts they were opening and a compensation program that had in place for their employees who got bonused and get compensated for opening as many accounts as possible. The unfortunate part is they opened hundreds of thousands of phony accounts without people's authorization, so they fired a couple of thousand people. The CEO actually ended up resigning. And now recently I saw they just also dismissed a couple other senior managers after doing some investigations on this. Problem is it hit locally home. Wells Fargo's headquarters is in San Francisco, but there's an article here just last week about the City Council of Alameda, right in our backyard here, voted unanimously this week to divest more than $36 million of its accounts with Wells Fargo. Now, this is a little bit different. This is because of the funding of the Dakota Pipeline, so a little bit different than, the reason for that we just discussed in terms of some of the activities we're taking within the company. But this is just another example of, in a kind of in a media world where we live today, that information is available to everyone in a moment's notice. A lot of times you may never hear about this, or months could go by, but in this case, they're divesting $36 million out of Wells Fargo because they of the relationship with the pipeline, and also they cite here into its banking practices. So there's really two reasons why they're doing this. Interesting article. If you do some searches online, if you want a little more details about it, it basically goes on to talk about how In a political society in which we live, there's a lot of huge organizations and companies that have strong beliefs on one side or the other when you're talking about politics and, what president and what administration is in play. And I think you're going to probably see this more and more with some of the strong beliefs. So in this case, they made a strong statement that we're going to divest this much amount of money because of two reasons. One, we don't like the fact that the funding of the Dakota Pipeline. There's a lot of people politically that don't agree with that. And secondly, they're still bringing into question some of their banking practices, which has to do with some of the stuff they were guilty or blamed of last year. So, a little bit about this. We're not going to spend a lot of time on it, but this is just another reminder of the choices we make to do business and do business with who. I also was did business with Wells Fargo with my checking, savings, and loans for years, and I'm also one of the people that is moving away from Wells Fargo because of these practices. Now, you might say, is that fair or unfair to make a judgment or a statement, especially when we have a voice in the way of podcast or radio? But that's what it's about. It's about opinions and our thoughts. And I also believe that companies, small and large, have responsibilities, and we all make mistakes at different degrees and different levels. But you should be responsible for them. You should own up to them. And some of the things, quite frankly, that bothered me about the way Wells Fargo handled this was a couple things. One, they knew about it for a long time, and they tried to keep it under the wraps. And again, you could second guess and go, well, sure, they tried to keep it under the wraps, Joe. They didn't want to get in trouble. They didn't want the people, the consumers, the world to know what they had been doing. I get that, but it doesn't make it right. So the first thing that concerns and bothers me is they kept it under the wraps. They knew what was going on. It bothers me at another level that the CEO and senior management knew what was going on. They obviously tried to do their best to keep it under the wraps and not get this information out. The other thing that bothers me is that when you go back and look at the data, within a couple of weeks of when they did the research and the investigation on this, within a couple of weeks from the time that we knew that the CEO of Wells Fargo knew that this was taking place internally within his company, he made a transaction, sold more stock at any one given time than he ever did in his career with Wells Fargo. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, he was with Wells Fargo for nearly 30 years. So these things are not good to me. So first, you're a part of something, whether you like to think so or not. You run a company. You're responsible. There could have been senior management that signed off on this program that allowed people to have these internal practices that were unethical and illegal. But as a CEO, you're still responsible. The buck stops there. And so the fact that when he found out about this, again, no one could prove that that's the reason he sold the stock, right? None of us could prove that. Let's just say the timing was awkward, the timing was unusual, and the timing was very suspicious. That within 2 weeks of finding out that this information was probably going to hit the public airways and the media and internet and all kinds of information out there, that he transactionally sold the biggest amount of shares, the largest amount of shares ever in his career at Wells Fargo. Not good. Not a good sign. And then the last part that I really didn't like about it was that they laid off, I think it was close to 3,000 employees, if I remember right, 2,500 to 3,000 employees for this. And you have to ask yourself, for me, I'm thinking, wait a minute. A senior management group that's bonused off all these things. By the way, the gal, I can't think of her, the lady that, the vice president that launched this program was bonused over $100 million because of this program. And she was, left or let go. I'm not sure exactly what happened. But I guess the third thing that really concerns me and bothers me about this is that they immediately fired all the people, or a lot of the people that were suspected of opening a lot of these fraudulent accounts. Well, someone might say, well, of course they did. These are people that did it. And I'm not really completely disagreeing with the fact that they should have eventually fired him. I guess the part that bothers me is that, in my opinion, when the leak was out, the information got out to the public, they automatically fired all the employees, or a lot of the employees that were suspicious or alleged that created some of these bogus accounts. I'm not saying that was the wrong thing to do, but in my opinion, again, what happened is they needed a scapegoat, and right away they let all these people go, and they should have waited, did an investigation, and there should have been a lot of other people that went along with them instead of pulling the trigger quickly on the employees in general. So those three things concerned me, and this is one of the reasons that I'm not a big fan of their activities and a lot of things that took place and what happened during that period. Make your own judgments. Wells Fargo also is a big mortgage lender. They lend in the mortgage industry. They're really big. Matter of fact, I think they have one of the largest percentage of holdings in mortgage lending. And so the question is, as we finish up this segment, do you want to continue to do business with a bank that has exercised and demonstrated these type of activities? I do not personally. Does it mean that maybe a year or two from now or 3 years from now people can't make amends and move along and forget? No, absolutely. That's what's great. We all make mistakes. This is a big one. My biggest thing as we exit out of this and kind of finish up this topic is it's the way you handle it. It's never the fact that we make mistakes. It's the way you handle mistakes. In my opinion, for a publicly traded company, they did a terrible job of the way they handled that. They did not handle it properly. For that, I cannot give them a good score at this point. All right, we're going to switch gears a little bit. I'm going to take a quick break, and we're going to come back and talk a little bit about the housing market, some of the technology around it, what are the expectations of the consumers now and in the near future, what types of things are we expecting in the way of transactions when we buy and sell properties. I'll be back with you in just a minute.
For more information on today's program, visit reradiolive.com. That's reradiolive.com.
Hi, this is Joe Kuchera of Real Estate Radio Live. Thanks for tuning into our podcast. We are your go-to resource for all aspects of real estate, including buying, selling, refinancing, building, and legal and tax advice, and much more. You can subscribe to Real Estate Radio Live podcast on iTunes and Stitcher to listen to an engaging discussion about anything and everything real estate. So make sure you get our app, RE Radio Live, in the iTunes store to follow the show.
Welcome back to Real Estate Radio Live. For more information on today's topic or guests, just visit reradiolive.com. That's reradiolive.com. Again, your host for today's edition of Real Estate Radio Live, Joe Kuchera.
Welcome back in. It's Joe Kuchera with Real Estate Radio Live, the podcast series, as we continue through the week. The first topic, again, if you missed it, go back and listen to it. Talked a little bit about Wells Fargo, some of the issues that are still surrounding that mega lender, and also I mentioned a little bit about how I thought there was going to be some consolidation in the lending industry this year and next year. Transactions are down, volume is down because the refinance market is over, and that usually spells consolidation because there are a lot fewer transactions to go around with a lot more banks and lenders. So we'll see how that shapes up or shakes out. So I want to talk a little bit now about kind of a continued ongoing, what I would call dialogue that I'll continue to have. The world is really changing when it comes to the use of technology. And as a baby boomer, most of us Some of us adapt it quicker than others. We've all heard about the millennials and how they're, really born, and even the younger group born with the mobile device in their hand. That's all they know. And there's a lot of reasons why that's going to change the dynamics of the economy. It really is, and in all different industries. There's a great commercial, and I think it's Charles Schwab, that I have it saved on my phone, actually. It's a great commercial about a father and a son in a restaurant. And if you get a chance, look it up. I think you might, in a search, you might say father-son conversation, Charles Schwab. What it is, it's a great 2-minute video, and a father and son are getting ready to have dinner at a restaurant, and the father's probably, might be late 50s, early 60s. The son is probably maybe late 20s, early 30s. It appears that he just graduated from college, kind of trying to figure out what he wants to do, and the father makes comments about, are you looking and starting to invest and start, saving some money and investing? And the son goes, yeah, I'm looking at my options. And the dad says something like, well, let me know if you need some recommendations or help in that area. And he goes, okay, I will. But he says, the dad says, I'll introduce you to my broker. And he says, well, what does he charge? And the dad pauses and he says, I don't know. And he goes, wow. The son says, wow, that's kind of interesting. And then the son was kind of caught by surprise. He didn't know. And he says, well, do you get your money back if they lose money or they don't make money for you? And the dad goes, that's not the way the world works. And the son's final comment is, well, the world's changing. And it doesn't go exactly like that, but that's kind of the way it goes. I would encourage you to look it up and take a look at it. It's fun to watch. And the reason I appreciate it so much and I like it, I guess it's a great illustration of generations. Here you have a baby boomer talking to a millennial about how we've always done things. And I am one of these people that I get very actually irritated, frustrated when people say, well, we've always done it this way. This is the way we've always done it. That's always bothered me. I don't, no matter what generation, there's certain things in our DNA, and that is something that always has not concerned me, but it was an issue when I'd come in and start with a company or a business and have an idea, and someone say, well, we've always done things this way. That is a dangerous comment in many different ways and reasons. Just because things have been done in a certain way for so many years doesn't mean it's going to continue. Matter of fact, it's going to change. Most likely the majority of that statement is going to change in many different ways in many different industries. Just look around you. Look at the obvious ones. Look at email. Look at the interaction. Look what happened to the phone. Very few people there's very, very little voice dialogue now. Most of it's email and text and online activity. Just look at the video business. Remember what it took to go and rent and buy a video, to watch a video. No more video stores. Look at bookstores. I know there's still some Barnes & Noble around, but they're on their way out. Look at what the online activity and e-commerce has done to society and the consumer behaviors and habits. Just take a couple hours or look around and see what's taking place. Sears, I think, is the latest one that say they're going to be closing over 100 stores. This is not going to stop. Some people might say, well, this is horrible, Joe. This is terrible. People are losing their jobs. Closing stores is not good for the economy. You could argue that in some ways it's not. But my rebuttal back to you in that argument would be, then make the adjustment. Make the adjustment. If it's you as a person, as a consumer, or if it's you in your business or you in a company, make the adjustment that's required to move along to the future. I'm not suggesting that you love it, endorse it, and say, oh my God, this is wonderful. They're closing 120 Sears stores. That's not the point. The point is, most people are doing a majority of their shopping online. And guess what? It's not going to get any better. And what I mean by any better, the majority of people that will continue to do more shopping online will grow. It will continue to grow. I myself, the baby boomer extraordinaire, I do 90% of my shopping online. Now, I understand some people with clothes and different things and TVs, maybe you don't, but think about the things you know of. Think about maybe the food that you buy on a regular basis. Think about the goods and services, technology, a book, a CD. If you're a sports person, buying your tickets, booking reservation, booking trips, travel arrangements. I was in the airline industry before my career in the lending and real estate business. And I remember when the thought was there is absolutely no way that as an airline we could get rid of tickets. I made recommendations in the late 90s to get rid of tickets and go to barcoded documents and combine a bag tag and a boarding pass, which is a totally different story. My point is, that's another industry that thought we're never going to get rid of tickets. We have to have tickets. Tickets no longer exist. I remember Southwest Airlines was the first airline to say, if you want to fly on us, there is no such thing as a paper ticket. You got to go online and book it. People were freaking out. I can remember they were going, oh, this is never going to work. You have to have a physical ticket in your hand. No, you don't. Now it's not a ticket anymore. It's referred to a boarding pass. It's so funny. Years ago, people used to say, do you have your ticket? Now it's, do you have your boarding pass? Now it's not even a boarding pass. Do you have your iPhone where you could scan your barcode and check in and get a confirmation? The point here is that this is going to affect the real estate industry. It's already affecting it on a small scale. The reason why it's not rapidly changing is because it's a legacy industry that has a lot of older people that are still working in it. Like, seriously, the average real estate agent and loan officer in my business, the real estate agent, is in their mid to late 50s. I want to say it's 70, 80% are still in their 50s. Think about that. So what's happening is you have this huge independent workforce that doesn't like change for the most part, hasn't adapted, hasn't embraced technology the way the millennials have in the younger generation. And then you have the National Association of Realtors, who is a huge lobbying body, more powerful, if you can imagine, than the pharmaceutical industry. A lot of power in Washington. The reason for that is they don't want to give away that rich commission structure that they have. These things are changing. Now, some people might say, Joe, this is crazy. This is the way we've always done it. This is what we charge. And by the way, this is my business too. This is about real estate in general. This is about real estate transactions. So when I have this conversation, it's about people who do loans like myself. It's about people who buy and sell real estate for a living, whom I work with on a daily basis, and it's about title and escrow. These are the three components of a real estate transaction. They haven't changed at the dramatic rate that a lot of other stuff has, but it is coming. And slowly but surely, the consumer will demand that all of our industries react in such a way that we make a better use of technology and we offer the consumer a smarter, better, more efficient way to do business. And our industry sucks at it right now. We're terrible. We do okay, but we're not that good. Seriously, we need to get better. And the only way we get better is, unfortunately, what's sad is we'll be forced to be better. It's not because a lot of people are proactively thinking about, gee, how could I improve customer care? That's the bad part. Here's what most industries are doing. They're trying to see how they can hang on to their rich commissions or structures or fees or costs instead of thinking about what they're going to do for the future. I think it's a big mistake. The businesses that will thrive and continue to grow, and the ones that the consumers will embrace and want to do more business with, and the ones that will try to continually innovate and become more efficient and more cost-effective. Let's face it, the cost pressure, the pressure on costs and fees all over the world is taking place as consumers use e-commerce and the internet, and they expect technology, and especially that mobile device, to be able to really navigate their entire life. It's not there 100%. It's on its way. And so over the next several months and this year, we'll talk a lot about the evolution of technology in the real estate market and the lending industry and how that may or may not change and what you could expect as a consumer. All right, running out of time for today. Thank you again for checking in. As usual, make sure if you want any more information, go to reradiolive.com. Give us a review. Until next time, take care and have a good week.
You've been listening to Real Estate Radio Live. For more information on today's program, visit reradiolive.com. That's reradiolive.com. Subscribe to our podcast. Discover more at reradiolive.com.